All in favor?
Aye.
We have before us the list of current accounts payable. We need a motion to accept them. Motion by Mike Wild, second by Brian Campbell. Roll call, please. Excuse me, questions first? Any questions? Roll call.
Craig Leggett?
Yes.
Matt Simpson?
Yes.
Steve Ferguson? Jane Sullivan?
Yes.
Nick Caimano?
Yes.
Mike Wild?
Yes.
Travis Whitehead?
Yes.
Brian Campbell?
Yes.
David Bryan?
Yes. And Park Business. Kelly Campbell. Campbell Kelly, one or the other. Go ahead, Jack, anything in the park?
Yes, basically, we have one lot that is really saleable. The other parcels, we can't really market because of the wetland question. And right now, we have two entities that have an interest. And it's kind of nice when you get two entities going after the same parcel. And probably for the executive committee meeting the first part of January, I'll have more information available for those two entities.
Okay, thank you. Ally, pilot billing update.
All of the school taxes have been paid from all of the pilots.
Thank you. Recapture policy. About a few months ago, Travis brought up a suggestion on making a change to our recapture policy to meet the ABO report. I think in front of you have the, somewhere in here, suggested wording. Yes. So, Travis, since it's your suggestion, would you please, oh, I found it.
Looks like there's a lot of paperwork.
The reason I suggested this was, the ABO did point out that we have an obligation to at least consider recapturing benefits that we offered if the client didn't make good on his commitment to us. And while it's under our discretion, we need to discuss it. So I looked and found this wording in a number of other IDA applications. So I thought this was good because it not only tells us what may happen, what we might do, but it also lets the client know. I felt it would be beneficial to both us and the client to have a better understanding of what it is we're talking about. So what this basically says is that if they do not meet their requirements, we will try to recapture the needs by reducing or by increasing the pilot payment, but we will not increase it past the 485B level, which they could have gotten without any commitment for jobs. So, that's pretty fair. But then it also doesn't take away our opportunity to say, business climate was such that it didn't make any sense for them to ramp up at the rate that they had anticipated, and we'll just forego this recapture. And that's what the ABO is actually complaining about. If we had, discussed that and put that in there, then there wouldn't have been any complaint from the ABO. So I just thought this, within other IDAs, and I felt it would be beneficial to be in our application as well.
Who else is in it?
There are quite a few. It's just like standard, but I can't right off the top of my head.
Okay.
It's not just one or two.
When I went back and looked at what the ABO actually said, in the paragraph, he's right, they asked you to look at it. What he said was our policy said one thing and our actual agreement said another. Our agreement said that jobs wouldn't kick into the third year. Our recapture policy, I believe, said that we'd go back to the first year. Well, if we already gave them 3 years to get up to full job count, then how can you go back and recapture the first 3 years when your agreement said they had 3 years to do it instead of doing the first year? So that's what the ABO looked at. Just throwing that out there, and I'm looking for the exact wording. And I did print it out. I ended up with so many papers, I can't find it. So that's what it said. So I'll open up the floor for discussion on this. Mike was first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, a question about that last sentence, under extenuating circumstances. Is that what's in the other IDA's agreements, or is that something that we kind of come up with ourselves?
This is identical, I copied and pasted this from another IDA's, and I've seen
So-
it identically in several others. I just don't have names or anything.
No, it's fine.
So what, right now, our policy gives us a lot of discretion in looking at recapture. We have the ability to look at their situation, figure out their situation, and go through to figure out what do we want to recapture, or are there mitigating situations that we should consider in doing that. And, they could have a fire that shut it down, or, something that they didn't understand could happen. Well, I don't mind the wording here, but what I would like to see, actually, I'll let Craig go first.
I was just wondering on the 485B, because we run a different schedule of the 485B, I can't do the math on the run here, does that work out pretty well for doing the recapture then?
So,
If I may ask him.
yeah, generally, everything that we've given has been more generous than a 485B. So 485B usually they pay like 90, or they get a discount of 90%, 80, 70, they lose 10% a year for 10 years, whereas we might just give 100% discount for the first 5 and then 50% discount for the next 5 that we're doing the WL.
Yep.
And we can be more generous than that. But so, yes, we would almost certainly have a more generous pilot than a 485B.
So, just thinking on recapture, so if we peg it to a 485B versus our own schedule, that kind of works out okay for the people that did not meet what they thought their goals were, but would still be able to recapture? Or should it be adjusted to what they actually got, if it was 100%, 50%?
Well, if I could answer that, it was my understanding that the reason they did this is that, even if they didn't come to us, they could apply for the 485B. They could have that amount of savings regardless of making any commitment on jobs. So it would be unfair to take that away from them. So that would be the base that we'd leave at least that much for them, but we could take away the more generous portion.
So there is also, when we look at this recapture for sales tax and recapture for other things that are mortgage tax that we could potentially recapture on. So one of my concerns here in his wording, and I don't mind the idea, when looking at that, is that it's automatic. And then they get a chance to come up and say, well, these are the reasons why this happened. My feeling just is sort of should reverse that, say they should have their day in court before we do it. I'm just asking that. I mean, it seems to me that's the correct approach and not just automatically do it.
I don't see where it says it's automatic here, but...
The exemption schedule for the following year will revert automatically to the schedule provided. It's the 5th or 6th sentence down.
I don't think that denies them their day in court, so to speak.
If the day in court comes after the automatic.
Exactly, which is compelling them to, let's make sure we make good estimates, and let's make sure we kind of abide by what we said we're going to do. it doesn't preclude us from, being compassionate because of a business environment or something like that. It just states that this is going to happen. I tend to like it the way it
Well,
is.
I don't mind it, I'm just saying, should they have the day in court first before we automatically do it? That's my only point. We may think about doing some other things in addition to the 485B. We may decide to recapture some of the sales tax or other things, so I'm just wondering if the order preference. Brian?
Well, I think where Mike's going, and I kind of tend to agree with him, is this is saying make sure you're accurate to begin with. And that's kind of right there, it's like we're not going to make this better than it is because it's going to just leave on its own. Doesn't mean it has to leave on its own, but
But there are times when you can't predict what's going to happen in the business
right.
world.
No, that's true.
Yeah, and in the end, it says, under extenuating circumstances, the agency may waive the above penalties after reviewing the written request, so.
With that sentence in there, it makes it all fine, it seems to me. We're saying under extenuating circumstances, so we're giving them their day in court.
We're all in the Christmas spirit.
Right.
No, I'm
My-
just saying, if somebody had decided that it takes 5 people to make $1 million in this business, and after 3 years they've made $7 million and only needed 4, well, there's something that we should listen to that.
Yes, but remember, recapture policy, our policy talks about within 3 years should be 80% of.
Yeah. Well, I think that last sentence makes it okay. Right?
Yes, Travis?
I think this is really off the subject of it, but as a note, we have filed, or there's a certain form we have to file every year to say that we've looked to, this is the sales tax, and that everybody, is okay. Well, I know a year ago we were talking about, there were 3 or 4 projects out there where they exceeded the amount of sales tax credits that they took, and more than what we gave them. And I did look, but could not find where in the last year or 2 we've submitted that form to the state that said that everyone's okay with sales tax.
It's the ST62.
Yeah.
It was submitted last year.
Okay, I looked
The
online.
form just came out. The state form just
I couldn't
came out
find it,
last
so
couple of years.
you could send me a copy of that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys should have it. That form says that, the question on the form is, did you recapture any sales tax this year? And then if the answer to that question is yes, then you answer the rest of the questions regarding the, whatever recapture.
I just don't remember that coming before us, and yet I do remember coming before us the notion that there were several noted companies that had exceeded, what they claimed on taxes.
I don't know the exact date off the top of my head when that form came out, but it came out with the new regulations for the sales tax recapture requirements from the state. It's Form ST62. I can pull it and send it to you.
As I recall, a year ago, we were talking about certain projects that we said you can take up to X number of $100,000 and they've taken more than X. And so that should be reflected in this ST62.
If the IDA takes action to recapture. That's what the question is.
Right. And we won't take action if it doesn't get brought to the table here. So I'm just wondering where all that's in.
So when the companies have to file with you at the end of each year, so it should come in the first quarter of the year, their ST340, which is what they have to file with New York State Tax and Finance, they're required under the documents to simultaneously file that with you. With the IDA.
I remember, first quarter of last year, this being discussed, and I haven't seen anything since the last. I've been on this board for a little over a year now, and I just don't recall ever being asked to consider what was going down on the ST62. And I would like to have that information brought forward, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you looking for action on this item?
It's open to the board.
Go ahead. I'll move it as presented.
Move it, Greg, second by
What's his name?
Nick, yes.
Not his
Nick, yes.
name's hard to think of.
It's Saint Nick. It's December.
There you
For
go.
you.
Okay. Next item of business is marketing direction, and I will defer that for later.
We don't
Take a vote
vote.
on it.
Oh, need a vote, sorry. All in favor? Carried.
Okay.
Marketing direction, I will save that for later. Live stream meetings, Ally?
I guess that's.
We have all the equipment to start live streaming our meeting, and I just got the instructions on how to run it today, so I will be playing with that this week, and by next week, we'll be live.
Okay, thank you. Next for you is the Christmas party reminder. After this meeting, we have a Christmas party at, Dockside. Tom, Jarrett, and I got information from, I forget her name, that we're going to have a discussion based on delineation of the park up here, what has to be done, what should be done, whether or not we should done, because delineation from the wetlands is over 20 years old. It only lasts for 5 years. In order to figure out what we can do with the lots, we need to delineate, have a new delineation done, and we want to see if it's worthwhile to do it, so we'll have a conversation in the first part of the year. Okay? Any questions on that? The one lot there is the one that Jack's trying to sell. It's got two prospects for it. It's the one that doesn't have any wetlands on it, so we're all set on that one.
Yeah, that's lot 3.
Lot 3. It's on Queensbury Ave, or County Line Road, right?
Correct.
Dewatering facility update. I think that we recently had a call from Eon, who's the attorney for WL Plastics. They have said they're ready to go forward with our sales tax exemptions. I know they're waiting on one thing from the village, but that was the word they had this morning, so they're ready to progress. What I understand is they are trying to get this wrapped up by next week, so they can do their equipment purchase and save and spend their money for this year. So, any questions on that? I know there are some access roads issues, which I understand that I was hoping John Davidson would be here to talk about it. Matt's here. He and Terry can talk about it.
Well, currently, as everyone knows, I think the best access into the site is Lockheed Road, and we're certainly, the town and Village of Port Edward are working with NIPA and Canal Corp, along with WL Plastics, to come up with the right way to go in there. Canal Corp still doesn't own the property; it's still owned by EPA, so EPA still has access, put 100% access into the site with the EPA permission. So until they turn that over to Canal Corp or NIPA, who owns the Canal Corporation, that is when Canal Corp will need to turn that over to the local municipalities. So that being said, WL Plastics is looking for an access into the site secondary to that road, Lockheed Road. So there is a right-of-way available to go into the property from East Street. The water main that goes into the property from East Street there's a right-of-way running alongside of the water line. That is property that's owned by WCC, and they are looking at giving an easement to the property for access from East Street if needed. Doesn't mean they're going to need the access, but they need to know that, when EPA turns it over to Canal Corp, that everything is worked out between the Canal Corp and the municipalities, that they still have, means of ingress and egress. So we as a village have said that it's not going to be a village road. It's going to be an easement
from a property owner from a village street. Yes.
Travis?
So, my concern is I've always been told that East Street is probably not suitable for access by heavy trucks. And if we were to consider that, I would certainly think that that would be part of the seeker study. And I think before that, you'd probably want to have some public hearings with the people that would be affected, and, just show where this thing's going to end up coming up onto East Street, or, I have no idea where this is coming out or anything else.
I can tell you that we certainly don't want continuous truck traffic on East Street. It's not built for it. It's a residential area primarily. However, Penalties Incorporated have heavy trucks that are would far exceed the weight of pipes if there were to come out there. Honestly, I don't think that's going to be a factor where it's going to be used. By the time, I think, Canal Corp, we've had meetings with Canal and NIPA about turning that property over along Blockade Way. And I think by the time the facility gets to the point where they can think about manufacturing, they won't need that access road. But they're not going to go ahead without the access road, access into the site.
So,
But as far as seeker, I don't know that would be needed because, it's a village street and, currently it's limited to truck traffic.
It's a title issue. Title issue. So if I lived there, it wasn't an issue. It's a title issue because property is landlocked at 6 now. And they are going to file this property. In order to get a clear title, they need access to the street. By getting access to the street, they solve the title issue and the rest of the property. Because it's going to take so long to go through government channels with the EPA to the power for the backing, in order for them to invest $17 million into the property, $18 million in the property, they want to make sure that they have clear title to the property. Otherwise, if you buy a landlocked piece of property with no guaranteed access, having even East Street, even having the village, it gives them a clear access to the property, so then they can get a clear title. And their lawyers will sign off on that. That's the whole reason background.
well, I can certainly understand, if I may continue the discussion, Mr. Chairman. I can certainly understand that, but if push came to shove, and we've invested $17 million, we've got 12 trucks a day, loaded up and ready to go. They have permission legally to use East Street. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a resident on East Street and say, well, didn't work out the way that we thought. We thought maybe government worked a little smoother than it did, and NIPA could work it out, EPA could work it out, and I still have not heard about that extra 100 feet or so between the bridge, temporary bridge, and 196.
WCC would be done over to any municipality once they figure out who's going to take the road. The issue is...
And we had that in writing.
So,
Part of this, all this is being drafted with the WNL set. All the easements are being drafted, everything is being drafted on the parcels. When the easements through, their WCC's parcels with the sale, when we finalize the WNL sale. All that's being taken care of now. You guys have not seen it because right now it's a party between WNL. That's where all that is being done at this point. The Canal Corporation will give them a permit, a year permit to use that road. They've already said that. The issue is the laws, New York State law says the Canal Corp can only give a permit that is 100% revocable at any point. Because it can be revoked at any point, their attorneys say it's not a safe way to invest it. The Canal Corp swears up and down that we see no issue why we would ever actually take that money away. We have hundreds of businesses we deal with, but the way the state law is, we have to do that. because of that, that was not the investment purpose. Title issue for the deed of the property, and that's what he, we foresee that road actually not being used. Actually, it's not even a road, at this point, it's just a piece of land in the dirt, where it would be. But what it's there for is to give clear peace of mind to the corporate attorneys that if for some reason the Penalties tomorrow decided we need to repair the road and be way around. Talking with the Penalties and everyone else, it does not look like that. We're actually setting course now, we're working through the path to actually have the road be turned over for the rest of the summer. Because of the timeline that the announcement, they can't wait 2 years or 3 years, whatever the process takes. They want to start now, but they spend the best money, and that's kind of where we are.
So, in addition, I talked to John Davidson this morning because I knew that was going to come up, and he confirmed that they would be willing to at least, on a basis, give a right-of-way through there, or something else. They didn't know what it would be, but they would give it before the closings took place, so that there was guaranteed access through there. So that was his words this morning. I was hoping he'd be here today to say it in person, but
Just so, and I think Dave has them, the maps have been all drawn for the road from all the way in with the
Brian.
So is this a permanent easement, a temporary easement, or not just a right-of-way in general?
I don't know the form of the language. They said they'd give it to us, but that's something WL has to have also.
Permanent easement?
not exclusive.
Not inclusive.
Pardon, Nick? I couldn't hear you.
Can you, that's what I thought.
Which is good. I mean, like us, we'd be able to use it. I'm sorry.
So that's the status on that. Any other questions on that? Craig?
Mr. Chairman, are any actions needed at this time?
In terms of that, no, because that's still ongoing with the WL closing. So, I know that last month we approved a resolution or motion for me to work with the lawyers to draft a contract to sales and purchase contract so we could do the due diligence on acquiring the potential property was offered to us by the Fort Edward Local Property Development Corporation, and I'll let them talk in a few minutes. But there is a lot of stuff that has to be done, just like if you buy a house, you negotiate the purchase of your house, then you go out and do the due diligence items, because then you have to stand and do the due diligence. There's nothing different here. By executing a sales and purchase contract, the only thing we're doing, and Kara can confirm this, is having standing to do our due diligence. Doesn't mean we're going to finally acquire the property. There still is going to be a lot done. I think that if, first of all, WL Plastics does not close or buy the property, we're not going to close either, because there's no way we can clear $800,000 worth of taxes. It's my understanding from Fort Edward LPDC that those taxes will be cleared at closing from the proceeds and the proration from WL Plastics. Second of all, is that if any of the due diligence items come up, then we have enough contingencies in the sales and purchase contract to allow us out of the deal. We also got a copy of previous title insurance policy that was given to us by the attorney for WCC, which was a title policy. It was purchased when FELDPC purchased the property. A year ago, I've checked all the easements, and I've had Lord Chadwick also check the easements. All the easements are either National Grid, Level 3 Communications, or there's one that one homeowner wanted an easement so that someone could go on the property to fix their water pipe. So those are all the easements that are out there. There is a right-of-way to the railroad, which I'm not sure. We have to look at that right-of-way. I think that's almost a federal right-of-way. We'll have to check that easement out for railroads. So the one thing that's been in consideration is the timing of this. We have to understand the timing of this. This is very important. if we do not close by March 1st, presuming we want to make the final decision to acquire that property, March 1st is a taxable status date. Well, Lord Chadwick, real property, can verify this. If by that time we have not submitted, closed, and made it a tax-exempt property, then taxes keep on accruing on the property. So another full year of taxes will come up, which is somewhere around $110,000, will come up due and payable. And I'll let Fort Edward Local Property Development Corporation address that from their standpoint. So if it's not acquired by then there's no way that the IDA can pay the taxes on going that. So there is a window, it's a short window, there is some stuff to do on due diligence items, but that's why the window of March 1st. This isn't something we came out and looked for doing. This is something that the Fort Edward Local Property Development Corporation came to us to consider evaluating because they thought we were the proper place to hold that property. Made some other discussions. So that's where we're at. I'd like to have Zach or Neil, I don't know who's going to do the talking. Yes. Oh, Jack.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just want to add one item in to this. If you take a look at paragraph 6.4 of the contract, even if we go through the due diligence process, everything comes back, everything looks hunky-dory, fine to move forward, but something happens and you wish not to purchase it for any reason whatsoever, if the buyer determines that the property are not satisfactory to it in its sole and absolute discretion for any reason or no reason, and so notifies the seller in writing on before the expiration of the due diligence period, the deposit shall be immediately returned to the buyer, and then this agreement shall terminate, and neither party shall have any further rights or obligations. I think that's a very important sentence and item here to look at. Due diligence, you go through the whole process, everything's looking good, but there may be some issue that comes up at the last minute that we might not even think of right now. You have your sole discretion to not take title to the property.
Brian?
You're saying, Jack, even if we just say we don't want to go through it, it doesn't matter what the issue is?
You know, that's a legal interpretation, and I ask, if Mr. Chairman asked the attorney to answer that if she
Yes,
would.
the way it's drafted right now, you could decide at any point during the due diligence period to terminate the contract.
But you
No
just qualified
excuses.
that, you say the way it's qualified, the way it's written out right now.
The way it's written out, I don't know if your attorney has reviewed.
My experience, Mr. Chairman, is the probability of that happening, if you go through it and everything comes back looking very fine, you'd probably go forward with it. But there's always that unknown catch-ya kind of thing that this protects you in that particular instance.
So, yes, Mike?
Just in addition to that, I was just wondering if we could put something into the contract that says it requires a supermajority of this board to move forward with it also. Instead of just a simple...
I don't think that has to be, pardon?
But sure, we could do that. If you treating one project, it might be an issue with
Other projects?
other projects,
Right,
treating
okay.
something.
Okay.
That's what I worry about.
I mean, at the worst, we lose our dollar deposit.
The dollar's not the big problem.
So, any other questions before I turn it over to Zach or Neil, whoever's going to do the speaking for Fort Edward?
Along the same lines, this clause is not in effect if it takes us longer to complete our due diligence. Right, so there's a certain time frame for us to complete our due diligence. If we don't get that done in time, we can still get out of this?
Absolutely.
The 90 days.
With 260 days after, that could be
Yeah, there's extension.
Yeah, there's an opportunity to extend at your discretion, but the timeframes have to be, as the chairman said, the plan would be to try to close before March 1st.
Well, bottom line, if we don't close by March 1st, we can't close because we're not going to pay $100,000 worth of taxes. Anybody who takes it, doesn't matter if it goes to, the federal government doesn't this taxable status date doesn't apply to the federal government, it does apply to state, local, any other government authority. So even if the village took it, and I don't think they want it, I'll let them address that themselves, is they would still have to pay their own taxes to themselves. That's the way taxable status is written. And Laura, could you verify that for me?
As long as it's the only transfer to a federal government, is what's about. Anybody that buys any property, be it county, town, school, village, they're still due taxes out there. They're not exempted on the transfer.
So that's going to put penalties on the taxpayers also. Bruce was first.
I noticed there's a required copy to Hodgson Ross. Who are they representing here?
The Port Edward local property.
Joe Scott's?
It's the office he works at, yes.
Al?
I just want to make sure that this body is very cautious in the way that the language in the agreement is drafted. My understanding from a conversation with you is, you will not take the property if there are delinquent taxes on it.
That's correct. We can't.
The timing of the agreement will matter.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to make sure you're cautious in your language, because if you close on December 25th and $460,000 in taxes has been paid, the taxes will be paid. However, there is a bill that will come due after that. If you close on January 25th and they pay $870,000, all the taxes will be paid, but there's another bill that will come after that on June 1st for the village. So I want you to carefully draft the language about the taxes, because if your goal is to close by March 1st, there will be at least one more tax bill subsequent to that. So I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job. I just want to give advice. Please be cautious in the language.
Let me tell you the items that are going to take time in the due diligence. The first is we have to do a phase 1 environmental. We do that even though this is probably one of the best tested sites besides Love Canal in the entire state of New York for environmental. Is we don't do it, we could be held liable if they find something in there, so best to spend, that's going to take approximately 45 days. That's why the timing is key to this. The second one is that we really need to talk to SMS Railway, who has a contract with them. We also have to do some due diligence on the power substation there, to look at that. So there are some issues we have to do. I think that if we look at the paperwork we've got from the brownfield studies on the opportunity zone, and there's a 338-page study done that's on the website. Jack can verify this, a lot of the due diligence is already done on the other stuff through those studies. Soil, water, wetlands, all out of others there, so it has to be picked out of there, but it is there, so a lot of it's been done. So I think those pieces of due diligence, and the due diligence to make sure the WO plastics and the road access is taken care of, those are really the large ones on the scope. We may find some others, and I'll let Jack speak to it, because he's done a lot more commercial property than I have, but I'll speak to it. So there are things that have to be done that take some time. So, yes, Travis?
So when you sent this contract out to us, you also sent a copy of the seeker, and you said that this needs to be done as well. And if you do look at the seeker, you'll see question 8A asks about traffic, and it's checked that there will be no increase in traffic, and I'm certainly not.
The action for seeker for the contract and the purchase is the actual acquisition. So it's not any other use there would also need to go through the seeker process when the proposed use comes forward. So the action is the acquisition of real property.
So, yeah.
I know a lot of the questions don't apply because the action is the...
So if we get through question 8A today, but then somebody's interested in buying this, we can't get through section 8A because they're going to want to get in and out.
Well,
traffic.
then they would have to go to, say, if the project was in the town portion, they would go to the town planning board, and the town planning board would do the seeker review on that, based on what their application is for use.
On our village.
But you got another set of lawyers saying, we need this access road potentially into an area where traffic is going to be an issue. I don't think anybody has a problem with if the traffic does go out to 196. Everyone's hoping it'll go out to 196. I was hoping, as I was told today, Mr. Davidson would be here, and I'd like to hear from his mouth that he's willing to allow access across that property that they purchased from Mary Weber a year or so ago. And I've been told that that's what they're thinking. It would make, me feel better if I heard it from his mouth, and he's not here today.
Terry?
I think you're gonna get it in something better than from his mouth. You're gonna get it in a legal document.
In what, another week?
That's actually what you need.
In another week? In 2 weeks? Is that what I heard earlier? We were hoping that in a week or 2 weeks that'll be signed.
Well, so, I think you're putting cards on the board.
Well, I think that's exactly what we're doing, is putting
Oh,
cards
hold on a second. What we're talking about was
The seeker.
we're talking about was the village street,
You're talking about the village street.
not the village street, the easement.
So
That's with the week or 2 weeks.
that. So
Right. So my point is, can't we wait a week or 2 weeks to see that before we call the question here to go ahead and consider taking this property?
That, the seeker you're talking about, that actually was done during the planning process. So, when you're talking about site development of W&L, not about the transaction of you buying the property. There's two separate issues you're talking about right now. When you do the site development of W&L, they have to go through the seeker process, and there's going to have to be lead agency. So either the town planning board, or the village planning board, or the zoning board, or both, will provide to be two separate, will claim the agency. There'll be two seekers on the traffic issue, of W&L going to the easement. Your purchase of your property, all you're doing is switching names on the title, and that is going to be totally separate. So you're looking at the outside acreage, all you're doing is changing names of who owns the property. There'll be no traffic increase, but your issue with the easement going through the street will be dealt with during site plan review and subdivision review and all the appeals that we get from the ZBA. Now, they have to do all that, and that'll be done at the two, with the village and the town, at the time of that.
My concern is access to the property off of 196, because that's where everybody says it ought to be. And what I'm saying is that in a week or two, is what I've been told, that is going to be taken care of. There's going to be part of a legal document between WL and...
That will be in the closing of the...
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that the question today should be postponed at least until such time as we get a look at that.
Travis, the closing with WO will not take place in a week to 2 weeks. They still have to go through the town board and village board. So I don't know how long that process is going to take. They still have to do that?
Well, this agreement that Mr. Davidson is supposed to be signing, I heard Terry just say, wait in a week or two, you ought to have that.
Terry never said that.
Jack?
Travis brings up a very good point. However, that is an item that takes place during the due diligence period. Before we can start the due diligence process and expend money to have this stuff done, you have to have standing, you have to have an agreement. Also, it needs to be done, in my professional opinion, today, if you're going to meet the necessary timelines to do an adequate due diligence and have it completed by the March 1st deadline.
Mike Wild?
Chairman, thank you. I tend to also agree that some of this stuff, Travis, you're bringing up good points, but I don't think it's really our domain to get involved into the seeker. If the towns and the village are going to take care of that. And it gives us a way out, even if we don't have that. But what I'm concerned about is one, I haven't heard from Washington County and the Washington County taxpayers in terms of what they think about this swap of ownership to be a tax-exempt property. Travis and I spoke about this. I don't know, Travis, if you don't mind, I'll mention what we talked about in terms of if the county were to take this over and auction it, they would have a certain amount of revenue, and they would also be able to put it back on the tax rolls. I don't really understand why the IDA has to get involved in this from the standpoint of what the benefit is to some of the taxpayers.
So-
And just another thing that I want to make sure I get out is this question of standing. I don't necessarily agree that we have to have standing to do any kind of due diligence. I think we should be able to do a lot of the due diligence without having a contract. But again, I'm not a lawyer, Kara, maybe you can help with that or not, but to me it doesn't seem reasonable. If I'm going to do research on purchasing property, I don't have to have an agreement. I can just do my research.
Right, correct.
Brian, Matt was first, sorry.
So, the way I'm thinking about it is, we're looking at providing the benefits. That's what we're focused on. We're still going to have a way to ensure that all of our contingencies are followed through on. Contingencies of the access, potentially the bridge. I mean, we don't want that responsibility, or put somebody in a position on that, and the taxes that are owed on the property, but we still have contingencies that are going to be built into this agreement that haven't
That's
been
correct.
expressed. So we still could protect all the entities that we're concerned, all these issues that we're concerned about by moving this agreement to the next level.
That's correct. If I was, I'll defer to Brian, because Brian has his hand up.
Well, I guess I was going in the same place. If Kara says we can do all our due diligence without an agreement, or you can just do your due diligence, and Jack's saying we need the agreement, what does the agreement give us?
That was my next
That
question.
just doing your due diligence doesn't.
You and I are working together.
Yeah.
Not a lawyer, so I'm not going to dispute what our lawyer has taken and said. But from a real estate standpoint, you do need to have standing, especially you being mainly because you're a quasi-public entity and you're expending public monies to do the due diligence. No more than, Mike, that you have a right to come and do diligence on my property that I own without my permission. And it gets even another higher level because you're using public monies to do that due diligence. Do you really want somebody who doesn't have standing to come and do diligence on your own personal property?
If they're interested in purchasing it, of course, go for it.
So, but I just want to say one thing. So we are going to be reviewing agreements with SMS for going forward. And if it was my business, I'd want to have some sort of standing that says this is just a drive-by shooting, to sit there and look and talk about whether or not this is going forward. I want something to say, you're interested in buying this property before I'm going to have this discussion about you about an agreement that's going forward and how this would be structured or potentially structured in the future. So because SMS would have to assign their agreement to us, and there's some other stuff we're going to have to check out with DOT on this, is wouldn't you want that company to have confidence that we were in a position standing and serious about doing something? I know. Sorry, Travis?
So I lost my train of thought there, but on that last issue with SMS, I did have a conversation with the fellow that was standing out there today directing us, and I asked him just how much business, how much switching are you doing nowadays? And he said, well, it changes, but he indicated that in the last, maybe it might be 10 cars a week. And so how did that compare to back in the day when they were doing the active PCB removals? And he said, well, that was 93 cars every other day. So, there is a huge difference in the amount of traffic and the potential for SMS making money yet there's the same, it seems, costs for them to maintain it, etc. So my guess is that we will not be getting such a favorable contract. The other point that I wanted to make when I raised my hand, though, was that the point was that we're expending public money. And the other point was made that it takes 45 days to get through this. 45 days of somebody else that we're paying to look at stuff. So it is going to cost us money if we go ahead and approve this. And I don't think that, I know I'm not going to go ahead and vote for paying money on something that I can go ahead and say I shouldn't have paid money for, because in 2 weeks I'm going to, have a very big question answered. And at that point, maybe I'll say, okay, you can spend some public money going forward and, get this due diligence done. Yet another report that probably says the same thing about there is no PCBs or no other hazardous materials on site, etc. But it's still going to cost us money to get that. So
That's the phase one environmental we're talking about.
which is what you're talking about. And so, it seems that if we were to pass this today, we're going to start spending money, whereas I'm saying, I'm going to wait to see this suggestion, which Terry says he didn't say, but, we're going to have something written in another 2 weeks, or we're not. There's going to be something from Mr. Davidson, who's, again, supposed to be here, I was told, but isn't here, saying that he's willing to give access across that property to that bridge, or not. And if it's or not, I'm not going to spend any money. Not public money.
Zach?
I guess I'll go back to the rail. Finger Lakes Rail did the transload for SMS rail. SMS rail came to site after Gene found out there was zero rail for access at that site. SMS signed a contract with zero rail cars. Bill can't compare what you do with SMS and O'Neill because they were not in the same company. SMS came to site with zero rail cars. So basically they went from zero, the same thing cars retail for this week already, and last week was to go on market. So really they came from nothing to where they are now.
So,
2 weeks, and I don't know where you got this 2 week timeline, but all those issues will be dealt with in the closing.
so part of the motion to pass this could be that there be a trigger when the study is done, to say that until such date as WL has made a commitment to, my trigger is not the road, the agreement, my trigger is WL Plastics finally making the decision they're going to come here, and making that commitment and starting the other process. That would be my trigger, that would be a more effective trigger to me. One of the things that Mike said that I think we should is we have the 3 representatives from the town, the village, and the school, which I've talked to personally. I would like to get their input on their thoughts about the IDA takeover of the property. I have a very lengthy letter from the village of Fort Edward, which Matt Travers, could you, and you all have that in your packet today, could you give the synopsis of what that says?
Our village board is certainly willing and hoping that the IDA will consider taking this on. I think it's a big advantage to having this group help market that facility. When the LPDC took it over, there's 3, 4, 5 guys who did that. They tried to keep this marketable and had some people interested in business interested. So taking that parcel that's currently, let's say it's assessed at approximately $10 million, half of that's going to be on the back of WL when they purchase the property. You decide to take it over, that's going to go, your property that's left will be at zero assessment. Our feeling as a village board is we'd rather have the $5 million going forward on the books, the $5 million coming off being better than the entire property going to zero and it goes back to the county. And I think that's what's going to happen.
this deal doesn't go through, it doesn't enough. There's no money to pay the taxes. Like as you said, Chairman, the sale of this property will take care of the back taxes, apparently. And going forward, WL will be responsible for their $5 million plus, and the rest of it being zero. It's going to be a hit, mostly to the school, to be honest with you, and which I pay taxes on being a village resident. So that's going to hurt, but it's a start to developing this entire project. I'd like to ask you guys that have seen this what you think of the property for starters, because I think up until this point, there hasn't been a lot of people that have really toured that to see actually what is over there and the potential of that facility. So it's our hope as the village that, you know, that you taking that over and see the huge advantage of this industrial site and the property even north of it that would not even be your property, the chance for development there. It can only help the village of Fort Edward, which is the smallest portion of it all. Certainly the school district, the town of Kingsbury. The property runs north to 196 is zoned for industrial use. That rail, the wharf, it's a huge asset that I think we need to try to get developed, and we're willing to have to bite the bullet on that property being tax exempt, bottom line. And it's with hopes that in a short amount of time we'll add to it. It's a start, and I think if it goes back to the county, I think it's just going to be gone. It's going to be a landlocked piece of property. If they do put it out for auction, which I'm sure they will to try to recoup their costs, who's going to buy a landlocked piece of property for, it's not going to be there. That's our feeling. So we know it's a bite, but we've been bitten, and we've stood up to the test, and I think I think it's the best, and our board does. I think it's a good move for the community.
So to answer the question, this is only an estimate I got from the assessor just a couple hours ago, is that the total assessed value for the village is $1.1 million. The assessed value for the town is $1.45 million. Crunching numbers on an estimate for taxes, this is using last year's numbers. I think the school takes a hit of $69,000. The total is about, that's my memory, so it's within a few thousand. The total, I think, is $104,000 in taxes, estimated taxes for that property. Brian?
Well, you lose taxes off the property, but your taxes will still be the same. It's just spread different over the school, the village, and the town. There's no tax loss.
So we have...
More for everybody else.
Right, there's no tax law. No, I mean, it's not like the taxes won't still come. They're just going to be
Paid by everybody else.
paid by everyone else. Yeah, it's just...
Terry?
The town is definitely on board, and the incoming supervisor spoke with Lester. He's on board. If you look at Fort Edward as dynamic, this is probably the only spot that can be developed. We have GE there on Main Street. They're taking it down, and look at GE historically. There'll be a fence around that and grass there, and the property will never be developed again. It's going to go from about $7.5 million assessment down to a fenced-in lawn. And if you go south of the village and the town, there's no infrastructure. The water's terrible. It's all clay soil, and there's no potential for growth. This is, I hate to say it, the last hope for the town and the village for any type of growth.
Mr. Ward is the superintendent of schools.
Yeah, so similar to what Matt had said, certainly it's not great news to hear that we're going to lose some more assessed value. As you all know, we've lost a lot of assessed value over the last 4 years, like $90-something million worth of assessed value that's left in our community. And what Brian said is correct. If you don't lose that ability to raise taxes, you're just raising it from a smaller group of people. And one of them not being a large corporate landowner. It's difficult for our taxpayers. I know that many of you, all of you represent our taxpayers. And what we're looking at is that just like the WL, if that deal goes through, and really I'm hopeful that it does, that does not help the school right away. Right? It doesn't provide anything additional to the school. We're looking at the future. After 5 years, they're going to pay 50%. After 10 years, they're at 100 based on the title you guys have approved. We look at it the same way. It's going to be hurtful to the school. It's going to cause us to have to, without raising our budget a penny, our tax rate will go up, which is difficult to explain to taxpayers for the 4th year in a row that's going to happen. And at the same time, we're borrowing $1.7 million to pay a large bill to the county due to a situation we were in that was totally out of our control. We definitely don't want to be in that type of situation again 3 years from now if that property is foreclosed on and the county administrator and the county treasurer say, hey, finance committee of the Washington County, we don't want this piece of property. Let's just cancel tax liens to make the school and the county and the village pay us back cash they owe us for what we fronted them on unpaid tax. So we don't want that situation to happen again. We realize fully that we're going to take a hit on this and our whole village will take a hit on this. But we do think it's a path to a better future. We're just hoping to hold on to everything that we have for our students and for our community with our school to get to that better future. That goes for WL, that goes for the IDA taking over this piece of property. So that's where we are. But for certain, we don't want to have another situation like what caused the 1.7 that we owe to Washington County right now. And that's where it looks like it could go. Depending on what Al thinks he can get for it at auction, maybe you guys say we're going to auction it, maybe you say we're going to cancel tax liens and you guys have to pay us back. And we don't have any reserves left to pay anything back.
Al?
I want to point out one thing I think is very important to Mr. Ward's statement. One of the most significant differences between then and now, there is no way the county could have taken a $5.5 million hit then. We're talking about $870,000 now. We're talking about a different environment. So I just wanted to soothe Mr. Ward's fears a little bit that we're not playing in the same sandbox as we were a year ago. I think they're significantly different in this environment.
That's good to hear. You are reporting that.
So
what I heard now saying that the supervisors are not.
What I'd like, I see your hand, what I'd like to do, because I think Fort Edward LBTC should have their say. I think they should say why they feel they don't want to hold it. I'd like to hear them first, and I'll get back to your questions. I've got the other people. Zach or Neil, who wants to speak?
Zach. So, I had a couple things I was going to ask for WNL. Basically, WNL is going through the due diligence process right now. We're working again with site plan and subdivision documents together, so it's like that process. One of the big things due diligence was communication in the village. There's been a lot of talk about the taxes. They spoke about taxes. With the sale and plus what WNL is going to be owed. Even if we go into next year, sale of properties, we will have enough pay all the taxes, the town tax, and we have to pay next year's county taxes. So that portion that comes through the property will be paid until March 1st. And the biggest reason why we were looking at going the idea, I think you said it today, is that we're looking at the future. There's the talks about why don't we just let it go to the county for taxes, then it goes up to auction, is you kind of lose control of the figures, I think, right? We have a big piece of property there that other communities wish they had. We're trying to discuss it. By the IDA taking that and developing it takes off one of the biggest burdens on it, taxes. So if it goes to the county for tax zone, or goes to auction, we don't know who's going to buy this property, no one knows. Our goal of that piece of property when we formed the LDC was number one was job creation and tax base growth. You guys can do that. You guys can actually at 90 days develop that site for industrial use. You
can bring more tax base and you can create more jobs. If you live in Washington County, lately the only thing that happens in Washington County is Belmont, we just got new Belmont Street. And when they're leaving, they're basically, not only are they just taking the job, they're taking tax base with it. So when you live in these communities, without the jobs and the tax base, they really start to stress it. And we do this piece of property in the future. But we need your help to make that future. Because as soon as it goes in the hands of the county is not set up to do industrial development. They can have a tax sale, but that's not guaranteed who's going to buy it. That's not going to guarantee what's going to be done with it. That's where we're looking at. Four of us on our board, up to this point, WCC has done the marketing. WCC really, at this point, they've been doing it for a year for free. They're looking to diversify themselves. They don't want to continue market, right? They have other things to do. So when we look at that, it's not too bad. For us, we look at our balance sheet, our taxes, everything else on it, and try to pay somebody to market it. You guys were created to do basically this. The idea is, we can do industrial development. We want to do job creation. This makes sense from our board side of it. And really, the community as a whole is that we need forward movement. We don't need backwards. We see this forward movement. That's really where we are on it right now. I mean, there's been a lot of discussions. Right now, just so everybody knows, we have this agreement that we have right now, three agreements on the site. We have a rail agreement, which you guys have a copy of. We have a purchase agreement with W&L right now on the site. And we have a license agreement with Florida Development Corp. Where they carry the insurances on the site, which can be canceled within 5 written days at the end of any month. So 5 days before the end of the month, they can terminate, or we can terminate that agreement. So they right now are carrying insurances for the site. Those are the only agreements we have on the site. We look at this as our, basically, as a community, we look at this as our growth. It's not easy. There's some challenges we got to work through on it, but it's very doable. The people who came to the site today brought you down to the wharf. That is another area that right now is controlled by the EPA. The EPA is going to turn that over to Canal Corp. You guys being public, you can actually go to Canal Corp and request to take control of that section property, which will give you more developable land and give you direct access to the canal. Today, it's not on the tax base now. When Canal Corp takes it's not on the tax base, so you're not taking more property off the tax roll. You're actually just taking control of more property where you can develop to create jobs and build tax base. I know a lot of the issues about this property is there's been a lot of limelight about it in the paper. There's been a lot of negative press about it. It probably makes it a little harder for you to take it. At the end of the day, for our community, we think it's the best that you guys take it to the board. The school board's on board, the village is on board, and the town's on board. That's really where we are.
So, Travis, what was your question? You were pointing someplace. Do you have a question, or you're pointing to someone else?
I have a question.
Well, Travis is first, then Craig, then you. Thank you.
Mayor Traver says that nobody wants to buy a landlocked piece of property, and I'm certainly one of those people that don't want to buy a landlocked piece of property, and I just hope that that can be resolved in 2 weeks, and at that point, if it's not landlocked, I'm going to have a different thought about this. But I'd also just like to say that the problems that developed a couple of years ago with the county, the reneging on the taxes by WCC and the county getting involved and considering, taking it and auctioning it. That land at that time was assessed at like $76 million. 35 million?
It was 76.
Well, okay, yeah, there's a couple different properties, but now there's a lot of money, and it had to be paid by the county to the school and everything else, and now you're getting it from all your, the little people that own the $50,000 homes, and there's a lot of them that are paying for it because it's not assessed at that kind of value anymore. It is assessed at a far lower value today. So the problem is far lower. And if you look at the $110,000, which was the estimate of how much is being paid every year, and you take 2 years to go ahead and go to foreclosure, now the county's got 200 some odd $1,000 invested in this, and I'm hopeful that the county could get $200,000 for this infrastructure. I think the problem is that there are a lot of businesses there that enjoy that infrastructure, but don't want to pay for it. And that's the reason why you're in the situation now. I mean, there's a lot of money in that rail, and it's worth a lot of money on paper. But if you don't want to pay for it in taxes if you're only sharing with 5 other people, maybe that is a good reason for the IDA to pay for it, and use it for economic development. I'm not opposed. I am all for economic development. I think that this WL Plastics project is great. I don't want to see anything mess it up. I think it is great, and I think there is a lot of potential there for the future. I mean, there's a lot of nice facilities there. The problem is nobody wants to pay for it. So we're not in a situation where we're any great marketers. We don't have it. We haven't been able to sell the land that we own. I think we should do a better job on marketing. I'd like to do a better job on marketing. I'd like to help you, whether we own it or not. This is what the IDA ought to be doing. But I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to buy a piece of landlocked piece of property, and that ends it for me.
I had Craig. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our mission, the Counties of Warren and Washington IDA, is a public benefit corporation. This is why we are here. We're to help the public. And it's created to promote, develop, encourage, and assist in the construction, expansion, and equipping of economically sound industrial and commercial facilities in order to advance the job opportunities, the general prosperity, and the economic welfare of the citizens of Warren County and Washington County. So that's our mission, and that is why we're here around this table. Now, we can be, and we should, be very concerned about any deal that we get into. But what is presented before us here is right in line with our mission. And if any other IDA had people coming to them and say, here, please take the land that has rail access, that has canal access, and it has road access too. Some of those are questionable. We came in on a road today. It has road access. So title needs to be figured out on some of these things. But it is the most excellent opportunity if we are going to rise to the occasion of being an effective IDA. If we are really to do the job that we are sat here to do, then we are to take up the challenge and do something with this piece of property. When you look at Warren and Washington County, and Washington County, as was mentioned, there's very limited economic development for that county along the lines of an industrial development. And this is one of the prime pieces. And we are tasked to do something with this economic climate. So I do believe, with due diligence, with the right wording, with the right timing for all of the things, we can enter into a purchase agreement that will benefit Warren, Washington County IDA, Fort Edward, the village, and the town of, and Washington County as a whole.
Thanks. I got an order. I'm looking at it. Mike was next.
Oh, okay. Mr. Chairman, I still haven't heard from Washington County in terms of what the county position is on this action. I've read something in the paper. It wasn't very positive. I'm curious if we have any kind of statement from the county that says yea or nay.
It was brought up at the Finance Committee. I will say that we had a range of people who were mostly were concerned about the due diligence being done. The second was that the taxes get paid, which is our concern also, to make sure we have free and clear title of the property. That was the other thing. Matt, did I miss much? And Terry, you both were there.
No. The concern is the taxes get paid. And unfortunately, as a present supervisor in the town, I know what's going to happen if W&L doesn't come in and you guys don't take it. They're going to dissolve the LDC and show up to Al with a deed. What the county does with it then, I don't know. I think with you guys trying to develop it, that's in the best interest of the county, in my opinion.
Nick?
Next, I thought Mike was next. That Mike. Oh, that Mike, okay.
The next one.
Your speech was excellent. It was perfect, and I don't think there's anybody on this board who doesn't back you on this stuff. But every time we talk about this, there are some hand grenades that are left under the table. And I don't know that we can afford to have those hand grenades go off on us. That's not what we do. The $1 is one thing, the expenses are another. And I hear a lot of people talking, but I don't hear them giving me that good fuzzy feeling that yes, we can go out there, we can do our thing, but we're not going to get knocked over to never recover again. We can do what you said. You're absolutely right. But I want to have some good some evidence that we will never get caught. I don't hear it. I hear a lot of people who want to help. I'd love to help. I'm not going to pick up a tax dollar from anybody. We can't afford it. We don't do those things. That's my comment.
Matt?
The other issue, oh, you're talking by Matt? Me, Matt? You, Matt.
How many-
I want to make
how many-
sure.
how many-
Well, there's
no,
another
we got-
Matt.
that- we're talking
Another
to you.
Matt.
Yeah, no,
Well, I was looking over here. So, the other issue was the bridge, that issue with that road, if that should be the entrance of how that was going to be addressed, because Kingsbury, I believe.
Kingsbury has a resolution on their books that said they will take the road when a new and permanent structure is put in place.
I agree.
Carrie Warner is very active in finding funding for that bridge. She's asking for a quote for the bridge because she wants to get into the budget for this year. She is working on that. Unfortunately, so we are trying to find a good estimate for the bridge. There is other funding which we have talked to the Economic Development Authority who can help bridge that gap also. We have talked to Northern Borders Commission who can help bridge that gap also for the funding. However, what it is it needs an agency to be the lead agency to do this. And first of all, it has to go from EPA to the Canal Corp, and the Canal Corp, then we can do it based on Canal Corp transfer to a municipal corporation. So it still goes to EPA owns a road, access, so there are ways to do it. It's just that we need to have agencies of record or projects of record to do this. So the best way I can explain it.
So the second part of that is, could we, in the next week, or 10 days, however long it would take, wrap up some of these outstanding issues that are really preventing us from being able to get to a resolution? Because I think the support is here for this project, but to see it on paper and lay out a roadmap, this is how we're going to address this, can we get there? Does this action tonight, is it really imperative that this action come before getting that information in a week, 10 days?
I don't know if we're going to get that information in a week to 10 days. I know that WL Plastics has to be comfortable to invest $17 million. They have cleared free access, so they are playing the lead on this. We're not playing the lead on this. They have all the discussions with EPA. They've had them in Canal Corp, they're ongoing, there have been several conversations or meetings with other organizations together on the same subject. So, in a week to 10 days, I don't know if that's going to be in place, especially when, guess what's coming up? So, I think that at a certain point, there has to be some sort of leap of faith.
Could I ask one more follow-up on that? Could I ask one more follow-up on that? Could I, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
When's the next time Washington County Board meets?
Friday.
This Friday? I think it would make the Warren County supervisors, because, we certainly want to do something that is positive for Washington County. If Washington County had sent a letter of support for us moving forward on this action, we could move in next week on a special meeting. I don't know if the Washington County supervisors are amenable to something like that, with a meeting on Friday.
I have no problem with that. Nick?
Just a thought, and it was just said to me over here, I spent 8 years, along with many, many others, fixing the last we had.
And you're still paying the price.
Is that a crash plant?
Oh, that?
Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mike, as part of the tour that we did today, it struck me the amount of infrastructure that's there. It is an amazing piece of property. But with that infrastructure comes some embedded costs if we're not careful, right? To maintain that infrastructure, to make sure it's working, to make sure the plumbing, the electrical, everything else is in good shape. We need to understand that obligation and the timing of the maintenance obligation of that infrastructure going forward as we do our due diligence. And it's just a request. Let's make sure we know exactly what we're getting into from SMC. SMC was maybe us. Yeah, those are guys over here on this side of the border.
I guess I can speak. So, Travis's worry is the we do our closing, okay? In the closing, the easements, for every local property development board, we'll get all the easements, all the way to 196. We'll also get easements in each street on closing. That is before you take over the property. The reason none of this stuff is being done beforehand is it takes money to do. One thing we don't have is money. So we're basically, W&L is drawing up right now. So every easement that's getting done is being put on both properties. So every easement that W&L gets, we're also getting. So all the easement issues before you guys take over the property will actually be to us before it goes to you. So the easements will then transfer to you. So as for the cost issues, this is the big thing, and this is why we talked about W&L being our anchor tenant. W&L is going to be, number one, is going to deal with power. They're going to use all the power. So they're going to deal with the power issue. Besides that, there's no site sewer or nothing like that. The rest of the site is basically there. There's a water line that runs on the site. Besides that, there's not a lot of anything else going on. As for the contracts, which you now have all the contracts, SMS is required to maintain the action. They're required to plow. They're required to do all snow removal for the site. W&L will take over their portion of the project. What you gotta remember is when if you guys get the site, you guys are getting the site after W&L buys the site. You're not getting the site now, because you can't take the site now because of the tax issue. So you have to look at the site now, but you're not getting the site as it is now. You're getting the site after you have the anchor tenant. Once you have your anchor tenant, that solves all the issues that you guys are bringing up. Because they're your anchor tenant is the one who's going to be dealing with easements. Your anchor tenant is the one who's coming through and going to deal with the establishment, and deal with the power and everything else. You guys are coming in basically second hand. So somebody else is actually doing all that for you.
and it's getting done. But the whole issue for us is, yeah, we could have an easement done tomorrow, but we have to pay somebody to do the easements. And we're not gonna spend money until we get our anchor tenant in there that we allow.
So if I could,
Mike?
Chairman, based on everything I'm hearing, we have a contract that we can get out of. We're not going to buy it unless W&L makes a decision to purchase it. We're going to be doing our due diligence. I'd like to create a motion that says that we move forward with this due diligence. If we necessarily have to have a contract, let's do that also. I think, based on what Supervisor Leggett said, it is part of our domain to get involved in this stuff. And let's just see if we can make it happen.
Do I get a second on that?
I'll second it.
For discussion. Travis?
So if you guys haven't figured it out yet, what I'm after is a commitment from WCC that they will grant access across Mary Webb's property for this.
So,
And there shouldn't be any dollars needed from your standpoint or anything else for you to get a verbal commitment.
We already have verbal.
I know you'd like to hear it from them.
Yeah, I
but
would
it's not
really
yet,
like to
that's
hear it
not
from
one.
them.
would you mind if I get him on the phone for you?
I did, yeah.
Our due diligence is still going to require that stuff being in writing anyway.
That's correct.
Yeah, I know, but if he's gonna commit, at least we're one step further.
I got a question while we're waiting. We talked about spending public funds. I'm assuming from what we've heard tonight, that's just lawyer fees. Is there other public funds is there other money?
$4,500 for the Phase 1 environmental.
how much?
Hi, John, Dave.
45.
Hey, I'm in the meeting, and one of the questions came up is, and if you're comfortable answering this on the phone, is the question came up, is WCC willing to commit to ensuring there's access over that Mary Webb piece of property in some fashion before we closed?
Put them on speaker so we can hear them.
Your predecessor was led the...
We're trying to get the contract, and that's one of the questions still on the table. Approve? Yes. Yes.
Can you tell it's him?
Okay.
Can you tell it's him?
So what was the other question?
It's him on the phone.
The rest of the due diligence is, as far as I'm concerned, the other one that,
I said, can you tell?
Ryan?
John Davis
Wait a minute.
on the phone.
Can I tell them? Oh,
Wait,
he's just talking.
Guys,
Ryan, the other thing that we are going to have to look at is, maybe that Travis can do this, is that substation. We should look at that substation, find the condition of that substation.
Write it
I'm not
down.
a power guy.
What's that? All the things that the due diligence is going to do. Do we have this still on the phone with it?
I'm here.
It's all part of what we do.
Well, let me put you on
Just
speaker.
got done.
Hold on a second.
So who's responsible? What the dollar? I mean, we're not the dollar.
in front of your mic.
Speaker in front of your mic.
Oh,
You do that?
Your microphone.
There is, it's my only one, but.
you just gotta be smarter than the average bear.
I have John Davidson on the phone. John?
Yes. I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead. The question was about access to the Mary Webb piece of property.
So if you're talking about having the Warren Washington County IDA take over the whatever local property development corporation's property, will WCC provide an easement over or donate that Mary Webb piece of property to the IDA? And the answer is yes.
Okay?
Either a permanent easement or donate the property.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks for your help, John. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mr. Biddle?
Mr. Chairman, could we just take 5 minutes and just write down everyone's concerns, and then because we're repeating a lot of the concerns, number one, and rightfully so, because we're either unsure, or we're not getting answers, or we feel we're not getting answers when we have answers. Could we just please all here, we have very intelligent people in the room asking great questions, just write down every single one, over and above Jack, your checklist here, but specifics that say, here's the question, here's the answer needed.
I got Mary Webb property.
Great.
That's the first one, because I remember that one right away.
Okay,
Second,
I want to know a total estimate of public funds that we expect this is going to take.
I don't have that, but I am saying that probably with closing costs, you can tell closing costs better
You're
than I can.
gonna title search, trying to think, based on, do you have to have any other site inspections, just the environmental?
John?
Yeah, I would dare to say, and I'm not telling the lawyer what they're going to charge, but I think when your closing costs, legal, other things, because we're going to be picking, should not exceed more than $20,000 for a property transaction of this size. Unfortunately, this morning, I wasn't in your packet. I went down through and listed all the items of the due diligence. This was a draft that the chairman had initially provided, and next to it is who it's going to be assigned to, and then what the percentage of completion already is, and what the dollar amount. We do know already that $4,500 is allocated for a Phase 1, and the importance of doing the Phase 1 that I'm told, I have a friend who's a very renowned environmental attorney out of Rochester, and she told me that under the federal CERCLA regulations is that as long as a entity who is buying property does a minimum level of base due diligence on the property, i.e. a Phase 1, that your amount of liability if future contamination was found is minimal. It would go back to the previous title holder. So yes, we could take and probably, using our combined levels of knowledge, read through all the artists' environmental reports, etc., but you're going to have a document that's going to protect you for federal and state CERCLA, but also, if anyone takes and comes up and files a complaint or has a problem with this in the future that you didn't do your due diligence, this is just part of the normal due diligence process.
And on that also...
And I would say, to be safe, is that you're talking 20 on the legal and 10 for other miscellaneous items, not to exceed 30. And if for some reason it should come to that a point, is that we'd come back to you. But I think that most of these things, and if there was a photocopy machine here, we'd give you a copy of this. This is to go down to and look at a lot of the information that's already been prepared, but it's on the checklist to take and do.
Okay. So...
Well, that's my best guess at this
We
point,
got
Brian.
road access, WL Plastic closes, what else do I have?
30,000 expense.
Craig?
Chairman, I was just looking over the last agreement we passed. WL Plastics, I believe, is going to be paying IDA $103,000.
$51,000 with sales tax closing and another $50,000 plus legal fees.
I think the total admin fee, I think, was 103.
Yeah, you're 103. And then they pay the legal fees, legal expenses on top of that.
So that's income for the IDA, that 100.
What else do we need on the checklist? This is everybody's chance.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Agreement stands.
I have 5. If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. The SMS contract review. So we have a contract. There's a contract with SMS right now. How long does it go for? How can we
Another
get out
2
of
years.
that contract?
How much?
sorry?
Another 2 years,
So it's
into
another 2 years?
2021, yes.
So is there any way they can get out of that contract and all of a sudden we've got an obligation for additional costs and the like? So I'd just like to get someone to get a good review of that.
Yes?
Canal Corp, can we get a letter of intent or at least a letter of probability that they can, no?
Unfortunately not. Many of us were at a meeting 2 weeks ago, and we asked that question.
Yeah, no way. All right, okay. Next one on the list is, I heard today that GE has a never-ending environmental cleanup obligation in response to the PCBs. I want to make sure that we don't take any liability along those lines.
That would be part of the Phase 1.
I think we need to look at the W&L contract, because it's stated that they're going to share a majority of costs for the substation, but that electrical substation has some very expensive equipment in there, and we want to make sure that we're not buying a piece of property that has a few $100,000 worth of equipment that may need to be rebuilt or, in the next couple of years or so. And then just a general overview of any kind of property maintenance costs that we might have. Roads, what else?
As a structured part of that road is going to become town road, I think we'll end up with about 600 yards, 600 feet to take care of, but maybe we can twist someone's arm as they're plowing their town road, they'd finish that up for us too. So, Jack?
And correct me if I'm wrong, the one section of the road from what I call Times Square, which is way down to the south end, that goes up to the railroad, it's like a 1.5 lane road that goes extension basin, etc. This so-called easement that would be coming in from East Street, that would come in and attach to the property up near the railroad building.
Correct.
So the area that in the past that I had a concern that there was property that was going to be left for potential IDA maintenance, it now appears would be something that the village would be taking over. So I think that the more we discuss and whittle this down, what did you say, about 600 feet right now of roadway?
600 feet, yeah.
Would be responsibility of the IDA to maintain, and I
By the way,
think,
I think someone told me WL would take care of that.
and I think that we
Or
could take
SMS.
and maybe twist some R's and we can make that happen.
SMS has to follow me.
Okay. I've got Mary Wood property, road access, WL Plastics closing, $30,000 for expenses. SMS contracts are reviewed and made sure their G cleanup as part of the Phase 1 for their responsibility for environmental.
Even though we answered some of the
Civil
questions,
contract.
Chairman, I think we still have to write the questions down that we answered them. So Canal Corp will not provide a letter saying that they can put the road over for a promised date. There were a couple other things that we answered too that weren't on your list.
The SMS contract.
SMS
What
contract.
we should do also,
That's assignable.
SMS is signing a contract with WL. Of course, they need more than 2 years notice for delivery of the site, so that's probably something that, I know they're negotiating that right now, but that's something that's gonna give you more support system. We haven't seen that because it's going between SMS and WL, but they need service for their site record.
So, we got the Mary Wood property answer. Road access is ongoing, WL Plastic closing.
Was it
We'll
my
get the answer
imagination,
somewhere.
or did I read someplace that if we took this, all existing contracts would be null and void, including the SMS then? I mean, we're saying it goes to 2021.
Oh, you saw leases terminated,
Leases, okay.
not contracts.
Okay, that's what I saw.
Contracts have to be, contracts are assignable, from what I've seen.
Okay.
Any other questions?
My turn?
Oh, you wanted something?
That's why I was waving my hand.
Well, you gotta be out farther in front of me. Bruce.
Do we have any figures for the capacity for sewer, water, and gas that's available if there's going to be this new development on this property? Do you have figures for what's available?
Joe, there was some estimates done. We had a meeting with the Economic Development Agency in August. They are
Add that
willing...
to the list, please.
Sure.
Did I hear right, that 30,000 is not to exceed that we're going to put in.
That's correct. Mike?
Marketing budget. What's our marketing budget?
I sent a pro forma out. My marketing budget was around $30,000.
Annual?
Start, yes. That was my estimate. Jack and I and other people still need to sit down and flesh that out. But that was in the pro forma, in that 30...
I'm not a marketing guy, so I don't know if that's a good number or not, right? So should it be 50,000? Should it be 100,000? Like, what do we feel we need? You guys were...
Jack?
Yeah, I think that going back to the previous question as it related to the capacities available in the infrastructure and also dovetailing into what Mike just had are all very good items that will be answered in the due diligence. And earlier we had talked about Northern Borders. There's also the CFI grants, etc. One of the first things, my recommendation would be under a marketing approach is to have an adaptive reuse plan prepared for the site. And I think, Mr. Mayor, you were talking during the tour today that some people have already done that and they've selected 4 different. We need to take a look at those and dust them off and see if they're still applicable and etc. And then that will depend upon how much capacity of water and sewer and those other things. But that all falls under this due diligence time period.
Matt?
You said CFI, did you mean CFA?
CFA, I'm sorry.
Okay. I was just trying to follow the acronyms, I'm sorry.
I watched too much CI.
Brian?
Okay, you said the contracts are assigned. What contracts are those that are assigned? That needs to come out. And what leases are terminated? You said leases are terminated. What leases are
I
terminated?
don't think there are any leases.
It's what was just mentioned. I want to know what leases are
I'll
terminated.
say it again, just so everybody here, zoning contracts, we have on site right now, we have a contract with sales of now. We have a contract with SMS Rail, and we have a license agreement with whatever property development, special UCC, to carry the insurance and market the site, which is, actually, no, not market, just insurance of the site, and that is going to be terminated at the end of any month with 5 days written notice. I can terminate it by the 26th this month with 5 days written notice. That's the only contract on any site, it goes on right there.
I think that was in as a catch-all, just in case there were.
And who's paying that?
What, leases?
Who's paying the insurance?
Right now, WCC.
WC.
And they're going to continue to pay that?
That's, the insurance cost is in our pro forma.
They're paying
They
it
put
for us.
costs in there, yes.
We're paying it to you, they're paying it, you're paying it for us.
All right, so,
No expense?
Travis?
Well, just to, Bruce was asking about utilities and such, and I was wondering whether Fort Edward LPDC has gotten an estimate of what it would take to get gas in there. Those gases.
There's a 6-inch line across the railroad tracks at real bark mulch, and then you could bore underneath the railroad tracks and feed it there, except that there's questions with volume. There'd be a capacity.
Did you take it up with National Grid or somebody else?
Irving Tissue, with the new paper machine tomorrow, they had gas. So Irving Tissue right now is trying to work on the process to get gas across the river. Actually, with W now coming to the property to actually help Irving Tissue get the gas, because the more partnerships you get getting the gas, the more likely you are to get a grant and everything else. All this helps the process of pumping gas into the town. Because right now they have to go about $8 million.
So, I'd like to proceed with the roll call vote on the motion.
We have to do the
Oh, we have to do the environmental. Kara's doing the environmental. Yeah.
Well, it's off on a new change.
Oh, this is part of the resolution, is a seeker.
Again?
This is a seeker.
It's part of the resolution.
Part of the resolution.
So, we are required to go through and answer the questions in part 2. Again, as I mentioned previously, the action is the entering into the contract for the purchase. So it's not any future project. So I'll go through the questions, and your options for answers are no or small impact may occur, or moderate to large impact may occur. So, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations?
No.
Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the use of land?
Maybe. Hopefully in the future.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
No.
Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? It's not a critical environment. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkways?
No.
Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
No.
Will the proposed action impact public-private water supplies?
No.
Will the proposed action impact existing public-private wastewater treatment utilities?
No.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources?
No.
Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems?
No.
And will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
So you've answered no to all the questions, and in the resolution, we've incorporated a negative declaration on this action.
Okay. Receive the roll call, please.
Chairman?
Are you passing Mike's motion, or are you passing the resolution that was written? What are you passing right now? Motion. The motion, right?
The resolution, yes.
Oh, the resolution that you wrote, or the motion that Mike wrote? The motion on the floor, right? So which one are you doing? Because I
The motion was for the resolution to execute the contract. That was the motion.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, the motion on the floor is to enter into a real estate purchase agreement, is that what
That's
we're
correct.
doing? Okay. And do we need to pass a resolution on the negative?
It's incorporated into the form resolution.
Okay, Sully.
Craig Reyes?
Yes.
Michael Biddle?
Yes.
Matt Simpson?
Yes.
Bruce Ferguson?
Yes.
Amy Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Romano?
Yes.
Mr. Wiles?
Yes.
Dr. Whitehead?
Based on what Mr. Davidson has said, I will vote yes.
Ryan Campbell?
Yes.
Bill Nye?
Yes. Motion carried. Next item of business is bylaw change for executive committee. We're putting that off because there's some other things that need to be incorporated in that. We haven't got the language done yet. Greenwich Preservation, you have in your packets, they're asking for an extension of time to use their sales tax, and not you looking for an increase in the amount of the sales tax utilization. They're just using for an extension, I think it was 3 months,
Till March.
The end of March.
till the end of March. Motion to pass that one? Motion by Biddle, second by Matt Simpson. All in favor?
Aye.
You have in front of you approval of the 2020 meeting dates.
Yes.
Motion by Nick, second by Biddle. All in favor?
Aye.
Setting a meeting, annual meeting was set for the February meeting, before the February meeting, whatever that date was. Do I have a motion? All in favor? I need a motion, a second on that, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Setting the annual meeting.
where's it gonna be, up in Sagamore?
Yeah, right. We're not the regional planning board. I shouldn't have said that.
What are you saying? Wait a second.
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
You have in front of you board evaluation checklist. Could you please complete that and get back to Ally? And anything else come before the board, I'll adjourn the meeting. I need to call order the, pardon?
I got my old question about not to exceed. Can you at least put in writing and return back to us what all these items are?
Yes, we'll do that.
And you yourself think they're under 30.
That's personal feeling, yes. Anything else? Adjourn the meeting. I need to call the CDC to meeting to order. We have the same...
Did we adjourn?
We adjourned.
Thank you.
The board meeting. Now we need to call the CDC meeting to order. What's the...
Accept the minutes.
I need a motion from Brian to accept minutes. Do I have a second? All in favor? Second by Matt Simpson. All in favor?
Aye.
We need to pay the payables. I think there was $100 for...
So moved, second.
Second. So moved by Nick, second by Matt Simpson. All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else come before the board? All in favor? We're adjourned.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Wow.
No doubt.
The right way to go. And we'll adjourn to our other party.
My paper clip. I was here too long. I broke my paper clip.
Probably right there.
Then this is just a letter. It just extends it out.
Before we have the meeting, I want you guys...
I know, I won't have your calendar. I wouldn't.
That you are going to market.
Weird color for, I look at it. Salem, Cambridge, they're not in.
We're going to decide what the recommendation is.
She does. Carrie Warner.
We're going to have this board have some property market, which is a whole... I was asked to speak, but never did. That was my suggestion. We're going to follow on that.
We can reopen the meeting, get a real word to speak.
No. I spoke more than out of turn even tonight.
Power kind of.
Those are the, but
I can,
yeah, when most local economic development organizations, they don't have
it's just a form.
and what they're doing is living on their laurel of very strategic level stuff.
Let's have the first meeting talking about just this.
Okay.
Where we want to go.
First week in January.
Hey, I went to hear from you.
Hey, Mr. Hicks.
Somebody call me?
Hey, call Mr. Hicks. Yeah, that's what I said.
What'd you say, Dave, you're inviting us to the Christmas party?
I got a copy. Yeah.
Call me?
No, I said Mr. Hicks. Thanks, Nick.
However, utility does have a right to bid our article.
Sure, absolutely.
Did do what they call however, in order for the boundaries to expand,
Are we really done?
No, we gotta go over to the dock side.
That EA took care of it.
Your party.
Thanks, Sue.
Sometimes it takes a long time to get to the right place.
Been 350 employees manufacturing.